the protection of children and the abuse of children. But what nobody seems to give merit to is the suffering of the parents also that have lost these children. And one of the good things that has come out of this is the parents that rally together and support each other. And I wanted to pay tribute to all of them. But also I wanted you to spare a thought for the ones that didn't do so well. And as we're in Stafford, I would like to tell you about a lady called Willow Simpson who hung herself, I believe it was in 2008, 5 days after being told her son was going to be adopted and she would never see him again. So I'm sorry to end on a sombre note, but I think these parents, people need to understand the suffering that they go through also. Thanks.
Okay then, ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking on behalf of Teresa Cooper, who was to have been speaking here today but couldn't make it. So as a friend, she's asked me just to briefly explain her ordeal that she's had. So I'm reading a bit of a script here, which I hope you'll understand. It reads, thrust into care at 6 months of age because of an alcoholic father and mentally ill mother, Teresa Cooper's life began in a less than perfect way. She spent an unsettled childhood in a variety of children's homes before being sent to Kendal House in Kent, which some of you will have heard about, which would become her prison and worst nightmare. Now, prior to her going in 1979 and 1980, there were complaints made by staff, professionals and Mind about the misuse of drugs at Kendal House. In 1981, at the age of 13, Teresa was sent to Kendal House by Wandsworth Social Services. So that was already in the knowledge of what was going on there. Teresa became a victim of a terrible regime, being injected with dangerously high doses of drugs and sexually abused. This cruel and vicious treatment, accompanied by punishments such as 163 days spent in solitary confinement, meant that it was not long before Teresa began to harm herself and even attempted to take her life. Yet, despite having no psychiatric problems, she says she was given medication at least 1,248 times over a 32-month period. Then after these 3 years of hell, Teresa thought her nightmare was over, but another one was about to begin. What happened? She was sent to foster parents, and the foster father raped her. She could not get anything done about that. She ran away and was resent back to Kendal House. This was when she was about 16. Since she moved on, she's had problems in getting freedom of information and her case notes to put all this forward for suing, etc. But over the years, she's been a big fighter, and it reads as follows. Teresa Cooper is a survivor fighting against a corrupt social care system. She has taken her case of abuse and drugging to Parliament and is fighting to prevent any more children from suffering at the hands of unethical doctors and abusive foster parents. And the extraordinary story of how a young girl fought against the most evil of abuses in a care system that was meant to protect her has made her become the survivor she is today. Some of you will know she's written one book which comes under 2 names. It's called, where is it now? Trust No One, and the other name of it is Pinned Down. They're both the same book, just different names. So I hope that you find the book interesting if you decide to buy it. Thank you.
In 1899, a baby was born in England. This baby grew up to be a patriotic and courageous man to the extent that he fought in both World War I and II, even though he was too young to enlist for the first and too old to be called up for the second. This man was born in poverty and died in poverty. He had sons and daughters, honest, hard-working folk. Most are now dead, but one of his daughters still lives. She worked hard all her life and is both patriotic and honest, and like her father, she's poor. She's my mother. I had a chance to escape from this poverty trap. I passed my 11+ examination as a child and was accepted into one of the best schools in the Midlands in the 1970s, Stafford Girls' High School. But I was abused as a child, not by my parents, and I was put into local authority place of safety, Chadswell Assessment Centre, near Uttoxeter, Staffordshire. This children's home was being run by wicked people who were abusing the children they were paid to look after. They were allowing people to come into the home and have sex in the home with the children. They were using cells to restrain the children, and these wicked people were inviting people to have sex with the children who were unable to escape. At the time, when I was a child, locked up in that cell, in that hellhole, I didn't understand what was happening. I knew that the people who had me locked up were bad people, but I had no idea that there was any collusion between them and the local authority. I still had faith in the local authority, even though what was going on in that dreadful place was clearly wrong. I was put into a psychiatric hospital for a year, even though I was not actually mentally ill. In my medical records, it says I was there as a place of safety. I was 14 years old and was kept at St George's Hospital, which is where Willow Simpson died, where she hung herself. I was kept there on an adult ward, and my companions were all adults with all kinds of psychiatric problems, schizophrenia, drug addiction, tendency to violence, sex offences, all sorts. It hardly seemed the right place to put a 14-year-old sexual abuse victim to me, now that I've grown up, and it certainly felt pretty strange at the time. When they finally let me go back home to my parents, who were poor but decent, honest, hard-working folks, and certainly not child abusers, my education had been ruined. I felt for a long time that my life chances had been stolen away. And even though I tried so hard to work hard, I found myself unable to escape from poverty. I went on courses and tried to make myself employable. By 1989, I'd become a church-going Christian, and the pastor of my church was so impressed with my ability to communicate with the children in the Sunday school I had been given charge of, that he encouraged me to get professional qualifications to work with children. And so I took a 2-year course with a year's work experience in a primary school. I was so dismayed at how the children were being treated at the school that I wanted to change my placement. I was not the only person on the course who felt unhappy at their placements. Most of my classmates felt exactly the same. Our lecturer told us that we could not complain about anything we saw whilst working on our placements. If we did, the college might no longer be able to send students to that particular school, and if we left, we would automatically fail our course. I had to button my lip and try not to get upset when I heard the teachers bullying the children and calling them names like moron and thick. I felt appalled that the institutions appeared to be purposely and deliberately breaking the spirits of the children they were processing. And so I felt unable to become a teacher, as I did not want to work in such a bullying environment. Although I wanted to work, I just couldn't find a job that paid a proper living wage for a honest day's work, which did not involve destroying somebody else, and so I stayed poor. That was almost 3 decades before I'd even heard of Common Purpose, although there was a little Christian bookshop which sold tiny little booklets warning about the New World Order. I went through the secret family courts for 7 years. I witnessed firsthand the perjury, the ganging up of solicitors, Kafkas and judges, the total disregard of morality, decency and humanity in those godforsaken places, which are the secret family courts. I thought that I would be destroyed by those people who had me in their clutches, but I kept praying, and somehow I managed to fight my corner and win my case, to the fury of those who had plotted against me. The website Mothers for Justice was set up at this time. I believe I was the first person in the UK to understand how the paedophiles Richard Gardner and Ralph Underwager had invented syndromes to cover up and facilitate paedophilia. We also discovered how corrupt secret family court lawyers, psychologists and other moles gravitate to grassroots organisations and offer to help the administration in order to smash them up from within. Because of how I was abused, I had massive self-esteem problems. I never thought much of myself at all. I have suffered severe depression in the past before I understood about social engineering. I just knew something was very wrong with the administration of this country. I wrote to every politician in the UK and the Channel Islands several times, and I gave them evidence that paedophiles were influenced in the secret family courts. I had thousands of replies, a handful of them from politicians who admitted that this was true, but what could anyone do about it? Most of the replies informed me that as I was not in their constituency, parliamentary convention prohibited them from getting involved. I did write back to many of these politicians to inform them that this is a nationwide agenda that meant it certainly was their problem, but it was like banging my head against a brick wall. I began to wonder if paedophilia had been secretly legalised. I was so shocked at the responses I received. And so I fought a battle with depression. I fought it, and I remembered that God had created all people as his children, not so that one load of people could stamp and abuse on another load of people. I remembered my brave granddad had fought in both world wars, and that the poorest people in this country had fought the hardest battles. Down the rat-infested, water-filled trenches, and Staffordshire has provided a good many of those warriors. How outrageous it was for this country to show her gratitude to these brave men and their wives by pissing on their offspring. I felt drawn towards Jeremiah the prophet. He was a reluctant prophet. He thought he was too young and inexperienced to speak, but God told him he would fill his mouth with the right words. There's many people here who may feel that they are like little tiddlers in a pond full of whales, but I would urge you to speak up for what is right and true and not to feel afraid. Jeremiah lived in times similar to these days in Britain. He spoke of the valley of Ben Hinnom, the valley of slaughter, where children were being offered up to the devil as burnt sacrifices. And don't just take my word for it, research it for yourself. And when Alex Jones managed to film the cremation of Care at the Bohemian Grove and the terrible screams coming from the so-called effigy Dull Care as it was cast into the flames, the whole world should have been on the red alert. Instead, Alex Jones has been dubbed a conspiracy theorist by those who would like to see these disgusting abuses remain hidden. We fight in a war, a spiritual war, a war in which we seemingly have no weapons. We must open the eyes of these people who do not see what is blatantly in front of their noses. So much for this legal document, the Magna Carta, which we were all taught at school, that it ensured the rights of all the people in the country to have a fair and legal trial. Yet in these days, our children can be stolen from us by secret trials and given to any Tom, Dick and Harry to do whatever they want. And the police, the enforcers of the law, aid and abet this breaking of the Magna Carta. The abuse and torture of little children is so obviously wicked, and yet the people who have been sucked into this dirty work just cannot see the evil they are participants of, just as the men and women who cleared the streets of Jewish families did not understand how evil had enslaved them. How did they allow themselves to get enslaved in this wickedness? Is there a way for people to be set free from this wickedness? Well, we have to open the eyes of these people to show them what they're doing. And we have to be prepared to forgive those who realise what they've been doing and come out of it, the whistleblowers. It is like we're trying to stop a runaway train headed for disaster by getting people to jump off and drag it to a standstill with ropes. This seems an impossible task, but nothing is too hard for God if we're willing to do God's work.
Thank you.
I'm speaking today as a grandmother. I've had my 4 granddaughters stolen by Kent County Council. I've taken care of 2 of these grandchildren twice before, and the reason given why I wasn't contacted on this occasion was because I might have moved. Well, I think that's a bit strange considering I'm an independent Maidstone Borough councillor. So if I'm a councillor, you presume that these people would know where I live, and they did. When I said to them, well, what about the electoral roll? They said, we don't do that. We do not, we don't check these things. But I've been in those courts, and the truth of the matter is everything that everybody's telling you is true. I think the councillors, the MPs, everybody should hang their head in shame, because I've seen my granddaughter's pictures. My oldest granddaughter's 7. She's wetting herself in care. They're keeping her in full-time foster care. They want to adopt out my middle one, and they want to adopt out my other 2 separately. And the reason I can't have them, because the judge doesn't know enough about me and I refuse psychological testing. Well, I can tell the judge and all of the corrupt guardians and the social workers, they're the ones who need testing, not me.
Hi. In 1989, I had a daughter. This was 6 weeks before my 18th birthday. They had to keep her in a bit longer because she was born underweight. She'd not been out long. I'd managed to get her registered, and a group of people turned up at the B&B I was residing at. One was the social worker, one was the health visitor, and 2 males, not in uniform, don't know who they were. Basically, I was whisked away to the doctors. I couldn't take my baby in with me. There was the social worker and my registered doctor in the room and no one else. And I was told I'd got to sign a piece of paper to get the help that I needed. I tried to find out what the piece of paper was by asking questions because I didn't understand what was there, especially only just being 18. It just seemed like another language. I wasn't allowed to take it to see a solicitor so they could read it back to me in layman's terms. I'd got to sign it to get the help I needed. So reluctantly, I signed because I just wanted to take my baby home, you know, feed her and get her to bed. And after I'd signed and I walked out the room, I'm told I can't take her home because I've signed her into care. Unfortunately, that impacted on life later. I've got another daughter, she's 17 this year. She's also no longer with me, and unfortunately for me, my mother, my second child's dad, have joined in the conspiracy to leave me childless. I was so traumatised by my experience, I pushed a local gynaecologist really hard because I understood some of his religious beliefs into sterilising me. I'm clipped. They've been on too long. I can't have any more. I'm too frightened of losing, and I just want them to pay for what they've done, not only to me, but to countless others. I've also recently learned that one of my cousins, she's in her 70s, they also did it to her. There's just no words to describe it. I think it's even bigger than Holocaust at Jews. It's disgusting.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Sabina Haywood. I wasn't actually supposed to be speaking today, really. It wasn't in the itinerary. But I have evidence with me today that social workers have fabricated evidence against me. But I know that they're doing it against other mothers as well, because I have a site and I had to set it up because a lot of people were coming to me and I didn't know where to put them. And there was a site called Facet and it started closing down. I think it's going again now. And this is Justice for UK Families. And you may ask yourself, why is there a site, Justice for UK Families? Are families not getting justice? And if so, why not? I don't know about what's been said this morning, but the courts are secret, which is not necessary. They don't need to be secret because they don't have to name the children. They can actually bring out what's actually happening without naming anybody. And I think that is to protect the professionals. I just want to go back to what Barbara Richards just said, who was not the last speaker, but the one before. Hi, Barbara. She said that there are paedophiles in the system, yeah? When my child was taken away at Lincoln, I discovered 2 years later that the officer in charge was then convicted as a paedophile, and I have it here. I don't know if you can... Give me what you want. Council officer faces porn charges against children. A senior council officer who works in children's services has appeared in court accused of making indecent images of children. This was a man in charge when my child was snatched out of school in 2004. His name is John Bennett. He's a Lincolnshire County Council service manager and is in charge of social workers. These are the people that are supposedly protecting our children. How can this person be protecting children when he's harming them? yeah? And all the social workers are following his call. I'm not saying that all social workers are bad. I know that there's good social workers out there because, strangely enough, as I was travelling up here this morning on the train, a lady was sitting next to me and she said, "Are you going shopping?" Because I said, "Is this a train to Stafford?" I said, "No, I'm going to a conference." And she said, "Oh, are you a solicitor or something?" I said, "No, I'm going to a child snatching conference." She said, "What? What do you mean? What do you mean?" She said, "Can you tell me more about it? Because, by the way, how long have I got?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Because I'm interested, because I've got a friend that's a social worker, and she was trying to help a family that actually needed help, and her manager was trying to put her off. So that's interesting," I said, because my son's been put into care, and I haven't actually done anything. I've got evidence here that at least one social worker has lied about me to keep my child in care. My child was taken at Lincoln behind my back. He was then taken and put into Stafford with his father. He was then taken off him a year later and put into Stafford care. I've been trying for 5 years to get my son back through the family courts. Every time I try, another social worker is brought in to write more lies about me. And it's rubber stamped by the judge. It doesn't matter what evidence I've got, it's mostly ignored. So I decided to start taping all the contacts at the children's contact centres, because at first I was seeing my son once a week, then it was cut down to once every 2 weeks, then it was once every 3 weeks, and then it was once every 3 months for 2 hours, supervised, even though I know I haven't done anything wrong. So there, I'm thinking, well, can I record it? If everything's above board, what's wrong with me recording the contacts? No, you can't record them. So I recorded them anyway. Because if they've got nothing to hide and they're not doing anything wrong and they're writing everything true, then what's wrong with me having the truth as well? They had one social worker, and I'm going to name him. His name is Tony Bowen. He was brought in 2 months before my court hearing in 2007. He attended 2 contacts and he wrote notes or a statement for the court. And because I recorded all the contacts, I have evidence that everything he's written is a complete lie. For instance, he said, I wanted my son to stay outside in the cold and I wasn't concerned about him, and the social workers were very concerned, so they had to bring him in. Well, actually, what was actually said was, "Alex, your hands are cold. What about a warmer coat that I bought you?" "Oh, I haven't got it, Mummy." "Oh, I'm a bit concerned about that." And then the CAFCAS officer, Leslie Hughes, comes in and says, "Alex, your hands are cold." I said, "I know, I just said that, you know." So why has this social worker written that I'm trying to harm my son when I'm not? You know, this... Sorry? Yes. Was she?
Yes, and she told lies about me as well.
Well, her reason for keeping my son in care, she admitted that my son wants to live with me, but she wouldn't even increase the contacts at all. Not even more than 2.5 hours every 3 months, which is disgraceful, really, because my son is getting distraught and, you know, he wants to see more of me. So why would they want to keep a child away from their parent? Because I know in Ireland, if your child's in foster care, you see your child every day. But in this country, they seem to want to cut you off from your child. And also, now that I requested an investigation into Staffordshire Social Services, as advised by Beverly Hughes, the Children's Minister, she told me to go back to them. I'd already put complaints in which were completely ignored, but this time I pushed it a bit harder, and I wrote to the Chief Executive, Ron Hilton, asking for an investigation. They put me onto a guy who turned out to be Adult and Family Services Manager, so he was the wrong one. So then they put me onto another person, and I was sort of passed through round people. And then it landed on Kate Bullivant's shoulders, and she wrote to me and said, "There's been an investigation." I said, "Oh, well, could I please have the information about that?" 3 days later, 2 police officers turned up at my house, falsely accusing me of sexually abusing my son. Okay? Now, I have never, ever done anything to my son. I don't even hit him or anything. I've never done anything whatsoever. So now, this is getting quite scary. you know. And these were the officers that contacted me in the first place to say that a third person is harming my son, not me. And it was the same officers, so this is a bit odd. Anyway, I have evidence here, I'll finish now. I have evidence here now, today, that the social worker that's supposed to be looking after my son, Charlotte Jenkins, she actually has stated in all the papers to all the professionals that I have a personality disorder. When my son was first taken, they got a psychiatrist onto me to try to say I had a mental health problem. Unfortunately for them, he wrote, there's no evidence of any mental health problem. So they got another one, a psychologist. Oh, well, maybe she's got a personality disorder. What they didn't know was I'm a qualified counsellor. So, you know, I can't really have a personality disorder or a mental health problem if I'm helping other people. It would be quite difficult to pass my exams as well. I'm sure they would have picked up on it. Anyway, I did tell these psychiatrists and this psychologist that I'm in that profession. I'm not a practicing counsellor, but I am qualified. I have a counselling certificate. I'm qualified to assist people with their problems. The psychologist wrote, and it's here, on my papers here, that there is no evidence. I cannot say that she has got personality disorder. She hasn't got one, because there were no problems before 2003. Well, 2003 is when all the court hearings started, okay? But here I have in writing here from the social worker at Stafford Council, let me just, it's here somewhere, it is here, yeah, she goes to the Children and Mental Health Service who were assisting my son via Stafford Council. And she stated in writing, which amounts to perjury because I think she's placed the same information into court, that I have a passive-aggressive personality disorder. This is in writing, even though the psychologist that assessed me said I haven't got any personality disorder. So you work that one out, because I can't work it out. All I know is that my son's in care. And there's one other thing I just want to say, Brian, if you don't mind. I received a Christmas card last week. Thank you, Brian. I received a Christmas card last week. Who is it from? Stafford Council. Is it them being nice, sending me a albeit belated Christmas card? No. It's actually the Christmas card I sent to my son via Stafford for a great son with love. It's the merriest season, you're special too, so remember to enjoy yourself whatever you do. This is one I bought in the shop. This is actually a published card. I haven't written this at the front. This is how it is. The letter I got from Stafford with it's inappropriate, so they have not passed it on to my son. So my son now thinks that I don't care about him, yeah? You send a card to your son. I also sent him money to buy whatever he wants, and I think that was sent to him 2 weeks later. So I thought, well, this isn't right. I said inside to Alex, you are always in my heart, and I love you, kiss, kiss, kiss. You deserve happiness, big smiles, with warmest wishes. And then my message as well, to my special son, I love you, Alex. Mother and son should never be parted, and I hope to see you soon. Love from Mummy. Is that inappropriate? No? Well, they think it is. Can you anyone explain why they think it?
You missed something else. You should have put on it, and if his card doesn't reach you, it's because of these nasty social workers who are keeping it out of your hands.
Yeah, but the trouble is they use that against me in court then, if I go back to court, and they'll say there's something wrong with me. And they say, look, she is passive-aggressive.
Yeah, but the reason why they do that is to justify their own jobs. They know they've made a mistake and they're trying to...
Exactly.
What they're doing.
Exactly, they're covering up, exactly. But I have to go now because I'm being called away, because there's other people that want to speak, and I could be here all day because I've got loads more to say. But while I'm here, I'm just going to say, if my son ever sees this, because I know he's not allowed on the internet at the moment, in case he sees what's going on probably. I love you, Alex. I miss you, and I am going to fight, 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 and I'm not giving up. I will never give up fighting for my son, because he should be with me and his family that love him, not with strangers in care where he's being hurt. Because I'll just say one more thing. 1 month after Leslie Hughes, the Cafcass officer, condemned my son to stay in foster care, my son was injured. He was hit on the head with an axe in care, and I wasn't allowed to see him. Okay, that's all I want to say. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry,
I should like shortly tell my story. I came in this country in 1990. All time what I live until this day, I live in terrible condition. We didn't have heating, we didn't have hot water. Few time ago, few times we were evicted on street. My old parents, my children, my father, veteran Second World War, who died on street in 2008. So when I have a lot of proof, newspaper with picture, everything, I took legal action in court. And in revenge, what I sent them in court, they abducted my son. I don't want to say snatched. This is called abducted. And many years I asked why my son was taken. But from beginning, the social service was scaring, and they won't return me my son. But after they understand, so after, behind me, not have big uncle who can help me. So my son, since from 1998 in their fascist care. 12 years I didn't see him, and even I didn't see him photo. They not allowed to see him, and cross 6 years after his abduction, with help one man, I found forgery court orders. Even I make expertise in Ukraine. Expertise saying, so this, because not original order, this was maybe from archive, 18th or 19th century. Instead, London Borough of Barnet wrote London Borough of Brent. So was taken from our document and put our names. So I have for this date, 28 October 98, 6 orders in different court. Was possible what happened? So what happened with me? And I ask people who have problem like me, we must fight in and punish with people who make this trouble for people, because from this ill our children, we have big problem. Now I have terrible medical problem because every time stress. I don't know what with my son. I took 2 private detective, and they can't. They wrote, so with criminal offense, I have good ground. Так what good ground? I wrote 2 letters to Gordon Brown, and with, he wrote me big rubbish. I sent in family, school family, and this. I wait, think maybe will be answer, because they must answer on his behalf. But I wait, maybe half year, not answer. I write again letter. Sorry, what you didn't get nothing. We sent again, and sent again from last year until this year also nothing. But if look television now, he go everywhere and said, please, vote me. I promise gold hills or mountains. Так why he didn't before this? You make this, you show people what you can. Why people must vote you? A promise everybody can promise. You wait. Это on Ukrainian language saying обіцянка цацанка, а дураку радість. This is translate like promise it with like toys for child or for stupid people, щоб he was happy. You understand? But he do nothing. You understand? So, thank you very much.
Just a lady, one question.
Have you contacted your embassy in London?
No, because I live here 20 years, and when I came in this country in 1990, but my country destroyed in 1991, so now I know nobody from 1991.
You should contact your embassy, because they can ask the questions and cause the embarrassment that we cannot, and it will be reported.
No, так if I go to again with some journalist or this, maybe this easy, you understand?
Okay, that's brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, I have said something this morning because I just feel we've all got to speak up, and I've got a very, very long story which I'm not going to go into. It's slightly different, as I said, because my son was actually born blind without eyes, and that threw me into the world of social work. None of my family have ever had anything to do with social workers before, and I've just had 25 years of rubbish from them, and it's taken me a long time to learn that they are actually have their own agenda, and coming across people like Brian and meeting other parents. Anyway, what's happened is I live in Cambridgeshire. I went for about 16 years. I've had absolute crap. I used to think it was because of my colour, but I don't know if that's really anything to do with it. I think it's just their incompetence and their viciousness, and basically I think they're evil. My son is blind, and I was waiting for a housing adaptation for 7 years, and it all fell through by some bizarre, actually that was racist because I live in a village, and they blocked it. So my son, I cracked up. I literally couldn't get off the floor with exhaustion because I wasn't getting any support. My son got taken into care. He was now, I don't know, I can't remember, but you know, not a kid. So he got put into a place which was totally horrendous for 6 months. I was told it was temporary by a line manager. Then we got him moved to Peterborough, which started off okay, but then I started to find things were going wrong, and because he's got learning disabilities as well, he couldn't really tell me everything, and he's totally blind, so he couldn't really understand, and he doesn't know things. Anyway, after a year, I realised he hadn't been fed as a resident, and they were getting paid £1,600 for him a week. So I started to try and you know, at the review, try and say, listen, you know, this place is really not working. We've had our problems, and please, you know, we want to move him. And all of a sudden, the gates just closed, and everyone started closing ranks and trying to block me from taking him out. And I was saying, well, you know, he should have got all this support, and he didn't. And anyway, social services ganged up with these people with a home and told lots of lies. So basically, they then offered me an individual budget, because disabled people can get budgets and stuff. They were dragging it out. A guy called Kevin Mentz, a tiny little guy, and you know, he had a real funny look on his face. He just gave you the creeps every time you looked at him. He tried to block my son, and he said, oh, don't worry, you know, we'll give you this budget and you can do what you want with him and buy him the support you want and everything. And we thought, okay. But it dragged out and dragged out and dragged out, and my son was still there in the home. And in the end, we had no option but to remove him. Basically, they dragged it out, and I had to put him somewhere else temporarily, which I did, and then he's come back home because he nearly died, because he's got medical problems as well that they won't accept and acknowledge. But anyway, what the situation is, I need somebody's help. I need advice, because we started this organisation called Disability Action, and please, if anyone wants to contact us, it's Disability Action, lowercase, @pt10.com. But the local authority basically have now withheld that funding that they said they were going to give my son. I borrowed money thinking that they were going to pay me. They've withheld it. So a complaint went to through the council, then through the local government ombudsman, who's now made me wait a year. And he's turned around and he's said there's no maladministration and there was no money. Now, I know there's fraud. I need help to try and get my son's records, because everybody has closed ranks and they won't give me my son's records. I've been there, they've already...
Well, they'll have to give it to you in the end.
Well, they have just written today and said case closed, right? Because
Cass now have offered to give me my file because I posted the letter on his blog We've destroyed your file. So the next letter that comes out is I'm getting my file.
Can I speak to you later? Because I really need to get my son.
Because we've got to get out and come from London and we're not going to keep you long.
Okay, well, maybe I can get your details because I'm a bit dazed at the moment. You know, they have frauded. I think the local government ombudsman is in with it as well. Over £100,000 of my son's money, and it is just absolutely bizarre. The Information Commissioner has closed my complaint against the local authority. I employed an independent social solicitor to get my records. She was completely ignored, and I just don't know what else to do. The Data Protection Act, I thought, gave us the freedom to get information about us or our children, but unfortunately, I just don't know what to do anymore.
Sorry to interrupt, but we're further on and we've actually got our paperwork, and I've actually got a case that's going to go in public court, and I'm waiting to come up there and tell you how to get it.
Good.
Right?
Okay.
So when I get 5 minutes...
Okay, I'll get off so you can get on.
Yeah, how to get it, yeah?
Okay, brilliant, thank you.
I look forward to letting you know how to get it.
Brilliant. They've given me some, but they've stopped suddenly at April 2008.
Well, we'll get you your paperwork.
Thank you.